Hmm?
You busy right now?
Nope.
You want anything?
The mic's on, but it's all good.
Okay. Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you think this is going to be a very strange question?
Mm-hmm.
You may have heard it or not, maybe not. Do you think in your life, do you
That's why I don't bring those. Good morning, Rob.
Morning.
Maggie won't be here today.
Okay.
Good morning. She wasn't able to get down. No music?
Yes,
Oh, he's
music.
here.
I just have it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I think the speaker's not on, is it yet?
me, you know, you don't love your brother, you won't help him. And I said, help him, and he couldn't do it. We found out when he was in high school, because in our times, they didn't know. That he, right, he got letters scrambled in his mind, and I could help him to come.
I got them for you.
Oh, thank
Right
you.
here, right here.
Oh, wonderful. You loved it?
Thank you.
Not that anybody would say anything different.
Well, she knows.
As long as we don't know, I guess that's all
Right,
right.
and you know what, who cares?
I'm sure, yeah.
And if she wants to stay right here in Port St. Lucie, whether we support it or not, find a way.
God's leading you wherever you're going. He is.
He's leading him, but not Carol.
Yeah, you are, and I'm.
Not Carol.
And I might follow.
You dropped the sweater. Oh, you got it. I left mine in the car, so I won't need it. There's some chili in here.
I'll be right back.
She's on the line, not about that.
All right.
Do you know anything about any medicine of any kind? What I had this thing,
Oh, my goodness.
and I don't know whether I ought to go to a doctor or
Oh,
not.
that's why it's so
I mean,
hard
it's-
for people to help.
This, how did that start?
Oh, the black is, that's age, but I don't know what that is. I
That's what I
banged
mean,
it
yeah,
almost a month ago, maybe.
and it's getting worse?
And it's just,
You need to
It
go to
doesn't
the
really bother
doctors.
me.
Right, you need to go though. Yeah, I think
You should go along.
Go to the doctor.
oh
Let
no,
them
that's what
look
I
at
want
it.
to know. Do I have to go to a doctor?
Yes, you do.
I do?
You
Yeah,
do.
you should get it checked out. 'Cause
Right.
It doesn't look good.
Right.
That's what it is.
Trying to get away from you.
I know.
I don't want to go to the doctor.
So did you not ask your son then? He hasn't seen it because he would tell you to go to the doctor?
Well, I can wait for my son. He's a doctor, but he's not coming down the end of January.
You can't wait that long.
December.
You can't
I
wait.
don't think I have to go to a doctor. It doesn't hurt.
Well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, cancer doesn't hurt either.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah.
I mean, you know, people that get cancer, you don't know you have, that's the problem, you don't know you have it because until it's bad.
So, I went to one doctor and she's like, oh, you can be 75, you don't need a
They don't want
mammogram.
to hear my problems because they're too busy focused on their own problems is what it amounts
So
to.
they found something, but it was foam.
I have a
But they put
friend
a little
that-
titanium marker in there.
Oh,
So that when I get another mammogram, they can see
And
what
he
it was.
could see
Oh, that's
anything.
cool.
So I was at the airport and they said, do you have any metal? And I'm like, it's titanium.
Yeah, I think it is,
It
right?
didn't show up.
Really?
I told them what I
Maybe it's so
had.
tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So,
Oh, yeah, I haven't had, breast cancer. Somebody said something not long ago, I'm like, God, it's been 15 years, I can't imagine going there. I don't have one.
Now I'm thinking, oh, no.
Well, I get mammograms and stuff.
oh, yeah.
Sorry.
And she got
I'm not, I don't know if that's good or not, but,
I had this
It's starting over.
week,
Oh.
so.
yeah, no, I got everything.
It's a lesson.
I got it all, but that might have been TMI, but whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm not TMI yet.
No, oh, I know.
When people,
My sister, I have a couple projects now, you old, my one is younger, and she's, so it's kind of a joke that we. But I'm selecting the voice right now.
thank you.
So thanks for that. And- Oh, yeah, yeah.
It takes time.
All right, howdy, folks.
Go in there, Rob.
Oh, yeah. All right, we do sing this every once in a while. It's a simple one. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open yourself to the song. Open yourself to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. All righty, let's pray. God, we ask that your presence would join us, be with us as we open our hearts, as we open our minds. Help us to change today and fill us with your joy, we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. You know, you're on the screen up there.
I'm on the screen.
About 15
Yeah.
seconds behind.
Yeah, I'm showing the live. All right. We're in chapter 8.
We started last week on chapter 8.
Where'd you go?
I've been practicing 7, I guess I needed 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so starting last week, we looked at the beginning of 8 here, making a list of people we have harmed and becoming willing to make amends to all of them. And we've done this the last few times. Let's go ahead. Let's do a recap here. All right, so here's our 12 steps. So the context that we find 8, admitting we're powerless over our addiction. Our lives are unmanageable, believing that we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us. Made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This is going to help us with 8. 4 help us with 8. Admitting to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. All right, so now we're getting into some details. And 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects. This is the readiness. And then 7, we're asking God to remove our shortcomings. So it's it's interesting to think about this. We're open to reflect on our shortcomings. We start to share the shortcomings, first with ourselves, with God, with another person that we trust, talking more specifically about what those things are. And then is when we are ready for God to remove the defects. So we know we're getting a clear picture of what it is that we're asking for. Yes.
Is it very hard for a lot of people to not be in denial and just hide their defects from themselves? Or do they see their defects but don't want anybody else to see them?
I would guess we are all hiding stuff from ourselves.
From ourselves even.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine that as the process unfolds, there might be some revelations coming that the more willing we are to look, then the more likely we are to see what our defects are. But just like it's like there's this idea of this here being entirely ready. So it's like being entirely ready to remove our defects. We might need this. We need this entirely ready up here when we're doing Searching and Fearless. Searching and Fearless, it has that sense of like, I'm not afraid of what I'm going to find, and I'm looking. I'm actively looking. I'm not afraid of what I'm going to find. But yeah, I'm guessing it's we hide things from ourselves. I think a lot of one of the reasons I go back to the parable, the speck in the log, seeing the speck in somebody else's eye, ignoring the log in our own. That has to do with, I think those are sins or shortcomings in Jesus' teaching, but it probably is a parable that lets us know if we want to know what's wrong with us, then pay attention to what you think is wrong with other people. So if I can see your shortcoming and your shortcoming and your shortcoming, and it's pretty clear to me what's wrong with you, probably the reason that I can see it is because I got the same thing going on. It might not be exactly the same thing, but it probably has a root, some type of a root to it. Yeah, if you can start using that, just start by just playing around with it a little bit. It's a little scary. Because if you notice when you're triggered and upset by something that somebody else does, it really, really gets to you, it really bothers you, makes you really angry or really sad. Usually there's an emotional reaction that is 10 times what it should be for the circumstances, something like that. All right? When it really gets to us, even somebody says something on TV, we don't even know them. Somebody on the street says or does something. So when that happens and we get this jolt, this trigger, it'd be good for us to come back and bring that to the Searching and Fearless moral inventory. What is it about me? What is it in me that's sinful, that's broken, that's backwards, that needs healing and restoration? What is it about me that reacted that way today? And I think that can help. That can be part of it. It wouldn't necessarily be all of it, but
I think the most powerful sentence in the whole book for me so far is on the next page, when you start on 8. Well, the next page, like a quarter of the way down, and it says, God reveals our sins to us gradually.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking way back of something that I didn't know, but I'm thinking of more think about what happened and what you did and why you did. God is revealing things to you gradually.
right.
Boy, that blew me away.
Yeah, couldn't take it all at once. I think that is really profound too, because I remember we read a book on the we're studying these books at my church on Sunday nights, and one of them had a page, something about in my defenselessness by safety lies or something. And I thought, wow, we've never studied that before. And I went back every book we'd ever read, and I've always studied, not just read and listen. They was always there, but it didn't break through till like 30 years later.
Right, right. Yeah, that's similar to the gradually part.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like,
You're not quite ready to hear this yet.
yeah,
So I'm gonna just kind of feed you a little kernel right now. And then-
right. Yeah, I've recognized this with the thing. So my brothers and I used to sit together. This is probably when we were all in our early 20s, late teens. So there's 6 years between the three of us. And so around that time, we found ourselves coming back to having conversations about our dad and his shortcomings. You know? Why he did this, why he didn't do this. Why did we turn out the way we are because of dad, or
Well, I
whatever.
wanna do that when I grow up.
And it's crazy how I'm getting stuff now that I didn't get 5 years ago, 10 years ago, an understanding of my dad's perspective and his temperament and the way he handled things in a good way, the way he maybe could have used some improvement. Hey, so like, yeah, I wasn't ready because I wasn't seeing the world that way, you know. So, and that's just related to people of the same family, same genetics. That's just dealing with a time difference just of growing up. So there's other differences in perspective that we may not get until later or ever. Think of cultural differences. I was when I was in the parking lot leaving on Sunday is when Bonnie mentioned to me, "Can you believe the stuff happening in Israel and Gaza?" And I was like, I was turned off to the outside world for the last 24 hours, so I didn't know. And then so, coming back, kind of getting into catching up with that, and now with social media, these big stories are so different than before. Like, for example, I went back and watched footage from 9/11. Almost everything that we have is like news cameras and things like that. If that happened today, you'd have 1 million people with their high definition phones picking up the story. So with this Israel situation, a lot of what we're getting informed by is just random imagery and everything just thrown out there. And we still have the network option of, you can go to one place and get the whole story from one thing. But I say all this to say, there are things I know I just will never fully understand what it's like to be a Jew or an Israeli living today, what it's like to be a Palestinian. I can draw conclusions and I can condemn or empathize just based on what I'm feeling or thinking in the moment. But my perspective, it just has to be so very different. The way that I lived and grew up and what's valuable to me and how I see everything around me in comparison to lots of people, not just those folks, but everywhere. So, yeah, we do
What it
need.
means to be non-white in America.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, and there, we are rightly so focusing on race now more than we did whatever, 10, 20 years ago. We're focused on what it means to be men and women a lot more than we did 10, 20 years ago. And those things are important because they do inform our perspective. And not to take away from those things, but there are also many, many, many other factors that inform a single person's opinion or perspective on life. Race and gender are huge in terms of how they affect the way that you see the world and the way the world sees you and how we interact. But there are a multitude of other things. There's your socioeconomic status. There's your place within the family. Are you the firstborn, the middleborn, the baby? Are you an only child? Do you have children? Do you not have children? Did you where did you go to school? For how long did you go to school? What part of the country do you live? There's and cultural differences just within the United States. I grew up in the Deep South. The first time moving out of the South, I did do 3 years in Oklahoma when I was in seminary, but I was kind of on a campus and not really fully integrated. And everybody
Oklahoma was a whole different world in
and
itself.
everybody at that school I went to was coming from other places too. So it wasn't as much being immersed, but then moving to a small town in Michigan, the Midwestern culture very different from the culture that I grew up in, and then moving here to South Florida, which is basically somewhere between New York and New Jersey culturally,
Absolutely.
with a little bit of Cuba mixed in there.
George Washington.
It is nothing. It is just as far from Southern culture as the distance between the Deep South and New York is geographically. It's so far removed, and I am understanding more as the years go on, but I can only know what I can know with the experience that I have, and I don't know how many. I haven't really met people as a Southerner. When I go outside of the South, when I meet people that are not from the South, there is that element of, I don't think you understand me. I don't think you get it. I feel like when I look at kind of mainstream TV, movies, the news, books, everything is mostly primarily a northeastern perspective. The American perspective is a New York perspective, I think, first and foremost, and then you've got the West, the Midwest. That's what you see reflected in movies and books and things like that. The perspective that I see of the South in those books and movies and TVs and stuff, it comes across as a more shallow description of something. There's
Our world started in Boston or in that New England area where we began before we moved out west?
no, I think when it comes to like TV shows or movies, I think usually the context more often is New York, Chicago, LA. There are these big cities, And if you do have something about the South, it's like, hey, y'all,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, it's not sophisticated, it's not educated, it's not nuanced, well, these
It's hillbilly.
dumbass rednecks, you know, and they're more racist than you can imagine, and it's like, there's a camaraderie between races in the South that just completely goes over people's heads in other places. But I don't know. I don't talk about that a whole lot, you know. And there's somewhat of a lack of interest, I think, outside of being from the South. It's like, I don't want to know. I don't really care. When we moved here, and we tell people like, oh, we're from Michigan, but I mean, we're from Atlanta, but we lived in Michigan for the last 4 years. Oh, you're from Michigan.
Yeah.
So every single time that if we mention it this way, it's like nobody asks more questions about the South. It's more like, you don't have to tell me about that part of you, because I don't want to know.
You Southerners are.
I don't want to know. So anyway, all of this to say, like, you know, understanding ourselves or understanding one another, it takes a long time. I've been married for celebrated 22 years. We're still learning each other, you know. I mean, that's good, but it's like, it takes, if you're still learning about somebody and you're spending as much time as you possibly can with another human being, just imagine how little we know about each other that see each other here and there just a little bit, you know. So it's like understanding ourselves and understanding other people. It does come gradually, because it's so deep and complex. And
Are you alluding to the fact that maybe the U.S. culture is making a searching and fearless moral inventory of itself, and a lot of people are struggling with that? Because I see
Yes.
culture changing very much.
yes,
Almost gets more ferocious the more people see over their eyes open.
well, I think this is good. Here's the key word. I think it's good to do it like this. Do the searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself.
Okay.
I think a lot of what we do culturally, like if we're talking about how we're collectively doing I think we are doing a moral inventory of ourselves, but usually we're doing a moral inventory of the other people in our society and how immoral all these other people are. It's rare for you to see the conservatives say, let's look at ourselves, conservatives, but it's like the conservatives are going to point out the moral failings of the liberal, and the liberal will point out the moral failings of the conservative. It's usually not us pointing out to ourselves, you know, where we need.
The log in the
Right, because we know it bothers us, you know, but
I'm sure glad I don't
it's-
have any of those traits.
yeah, it's easy to. Well, anyway, we can look at other cultures and we can say, look at how sexist that culture is, and it's like, well, we're just doing sexism differently. We're still doing it. We're just doing it differently, you know, and so we get to this place where we're really looking at ourselves. We're ready for God to remove these, and then we're asking. So we kind of know, we should, at least by this point, we have some insight into what it is that we're asking God to remove. Let me ask this for those of you that are familiar with the steps. In my experience, it seems that immoral decision-making behaviors, those things that we do that are wrong, that are unhealthy, that are sinful, usually if we kind of dig a little bit, we can find those usually come out of something. We were open to do those things because of some kind of a deeper shortcoming that really doesn't have to do with anything that we've done ourselves. In other words, a person who, let's say, grew up as an orphan may find that they have certain tendencies to see the world a certain way and interact. They may find morally that there are shortcomings in a certain way, and then end up tracing it back to these feelings or a perspective that probably came from this life of an orphan. If somebody grew up in a situation where there was abuse as a child, usually there's ways people try to, this has an impact on us emotionally and psychologically. So as we kind of become adults and move through life ourselves, we're still coping with that damage, and the way that we cope is often done in immoral ways. We might become this happens a lot in attempts to find love and intimacy. Someone ends up becoming someone who just sleeps around a lot or something like that. But if you look at it, why would somebody be engaging in promiscuous behavior? A lot of times it is related to something to do with this intimacy not being fulfilled, or it's almost like you fill up your tank, but your tank has holes in it or something like that. It's never fully satisfying. So when we're asking God to remove our shortcomings, there's the behaviors and the perspectives that we find ourselves in that are broken and sinful, and we do want those fixed. But if we don't get to kind of the root of what stirs that up in us, that would be a shortcoming. So when we're asking God to remove shortcomings, is this more behavior oriented? And then we're
some of these things that you were talking about, at one point, for a lot of us, they were survival skills.
Yeah.
Coping skills, survival skills. But our reality has changed, but those survival skills and those coping skills haven't.
Right.
So that's the behaviors you were talking about that we have to
Right.
work on, kind of adapting to our new reality.
Yeah.
But on page 69, it reads, God reveals our sins to us gradually, so we can absorb what we have done over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no magic poof.
Right.
That's what you're talking about, Elaine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. It's a bit at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Little by slowly kind of thing. And I think that's where a lot of our defects stem from. And I mean, it was just, and then you get into, well, this is just part of my personality. Well, why is it part of my personality? Because
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 5 or the oldest
Yeah.
of 6 or whatever, like you were talking about. It all kind of factors in.
Right.
In my life coaching, it's buffering because we don't want to feel the emotions. I
Yeah.
had to learn to sit with sad instead of going to the refrigerator and having ice cream.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can make the sad go away. that way.
If you stick it in and allow it, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, with the ice cream, you can make it go away pretty fast.
Yeah.
At least for a little bit.
Fill the bowl.
Until you get tired and fall asleep, and then you're not thinking about it. So yeah, it's.
To
quote my granddaughter, ice cream heals everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a saying that we hear a lot, like God doesn't give us anything that we can't handle within a 24-hour period. Now, I might not always agree with that when I'm going through something.
Right.
Like, okay, this is a little bit much, I don't know. But, you know, like Andy said, and, you know, we're products of our environment, and we only know what we know. So if we grow up in a very dysfunctional environment, we find ways to survive that or to deny that or to, you know, so that we're capable of moving forward in whatever way that is. And again, you know, I know coming from an addict perspective, you know, from my experience in the 12 steps, but, you know, we do these one step at a time to help us to get to the next level so that, you know, if we haven't done a thorough 4th step or as thorough as we can, we don't go through these 12 steps and we're done. We start over. And there's always more that will be revealed. And again, you know, like I might see something the first time I do it 10 years later, like, oh, I didn't, or I wasn't ready or to deal with that, or I didn't see it in my denial. You know, there are a lot of times, you know, we can be in recovery for 10 or 20 years before we actually recognize maybe a behavior that we didn't realize was hurting us or not efficient or, you know. So yeah, and people, and again, we always say, you know, drugs are only a symptom of the disease of addiction. You know, there's so many other things, abuse, you know, codependency, dysfunction that some live with more than others, you know. And I mean, I hear horror stories and I look at these people and go, oh my gosh.
You know, saying that your background never leaves you.
Right.
That's basically what.
Yeah, that's where we come
Yeah,
from.
it's coming to terms with the background. And I mean, in my experience, this is really a simplified way to look at it, but essentially, like if and when we're able to look into our past, when we're looking for God to restore us, it's essentially God giving us the grace to accept. And because God's not going into a time machine and turning things around. Yes, there might be, you know, moving forward, maybe there are some blessings that came out that you are aware of and are more grateful for because of the bad stuff that you've experienced, you know. But the connection between the two, I don't think, is as simple as like, oh, God took that bad thing and turned it into that good thing. Because that's kind of messed up, especially when you look at some really messed up stuff that has gone in people's life. To think that God would make that happen so that there can be some good thing later. I don't see that. But I can see if God gives us the grace to accept these horrible things, then we probably would be blessed with the eyes to see this gracious, amazing life in front of us that maybe we had some of before and we couldn't even see it because we were so into our coping and our covering up and our surviving and running away from facing those things and facing those things can be a gradual thing. Maybe we're not ready to face the whole thing right now. We might need to get a little peek at a time, a little taste at a time, because it's just too much for one person to fully process, you know. But it's just wild that, to me, it's like the things that I've seen, if it's a simplification. There's lots of different theories of psychological therapy. You know, one way is to go back and kind of relive things or understand things in a new way, and there's maybe some benefit to that. But essentially, at least what I've seen like with grief recovery groups is it's looking face to face with what you've experienced and just allowing yourself to feel it and allowing yourself to somehow accept it. And now, there's some little hacks or tweaks or you know, little tricks to help get to that place. But essentially, I think it is like if we experienced this bad thing, it's like, this deserves this much sadness. And until you have felt this much sadness, it's just going to be sitting there waiting for us.
Like the only way
And I don't know, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't, we would like it to be like, well, God, like, doesn't that mean I'm going to be sad forever? Because this loss is so deep and profound. And I think we kind of go into that really not knowing how long it's going to take and what it's going to feel like. But if we can face it with courage, and again, I think with these steps, I think what you guys were saying is we're kind of focusing on the coping skills, the bad behaviors, the addictive stuff, and we're recognizing that so that we can see it as it plays out in real time, and then we can kind of be like, okay, I don't have to go there. It's not going to help. It's a lie to think that that's going to make things better. It's going to make it worse. And then the whole thing of I don't know that we really get into, maybe as we start to ask forgiveness of other people, as we start to meditate and draw close to God, then maybe we do see what is the source of this. But I don't know if the 12 steps really dig into that part, or if that's maybe
Again, I know
something
for
else.
us, maybe it's different, but when we read these, we read these 12 steps in whatever kind of, what's the word I'm trying to look for, format that they're in, but then we have questions to answer.
Yeah.
So it's not just like reading this, and actually there's questions in the back of this, which I
Right.
have to say that I haven't done, but I
Yeah.
have looked at them.
Yeah, we haven't got to those.
Yeah, and so it's a process,
Right.
of like looking at me and answering, and sometimes like, I don't know how to answer that, but we do the best we can and
Yeah.
move forward, and at some point maybe we'll be enlightened and.
Well, the focus on how this can turn into behaviors or turn into decisions that are really not good for us. Keeping that in the forefront is probably important, because if we go on this journey of finding where does my first pain come from, where is my largest pain, where is that? I had a visual recently of like, I can think pain is coming from a certain place, and I can go to that place, and I'm just imagining this like cave that goes down, and what you find is this underground lake. And then you've got all these different entrances to the underground lake, and ultimately it's not that one entrance that's causing you the pain. The pain is just it's life pain, and it gets all commingled and hard to separate, but it's like, so I don't know, there's some like psychological movies that get into somebody kind of waking up to realize, oh, that's what happened to me. That's why I am the way that I am. And they had been in denial of, this one thing that they had experienced. And now that they know, it can make all the difference. I mean, that's probably a pretty simplified version. And probably people have more than just one thing that happened to them. It's like lots of stuff has happened. We've done, like, in grief groups, sometimes you do the pain timeline, and it's like these events, if you lay them out chronologically, you can kind of see them in a certain way. This happened first, second, third, and I've dealt with these painful things, but ultimately it kind of feels like they all get thrown together in in some regards, but
So in going through this process, like Patty was talking about, of answering some of these questions, we develop spiritual principles behind it, like being able to change our level of honesty to where we can actually see our part in it, because, instead of blaming everybody else, instead of
Yeah.
blaming the weather or whatever,
Yeah.
and surrendering it and that acceptance that you were talking about, and having that grace. It's a continuous process, they say, of awareness, surrender, and growth. So it's an ongoing thing.
yeah.
And little by slowly, we replace that ineffective coping stuff with more spiritual,
Right,
healthier. Yeah.
right.
And one of my
That's correct.
coaches, I love her, she says, celebrate yourself.
Yeah,
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
yeah. Yeah, it's not just all about looking at the bad stuff,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
because we can get locked into that. Yeah. Okay, and we're even there's the decision making and the behaviors that we want to change, but maybe there's a lot of good behaviors and good decisions that we have forgotten about, or we're not really celebrating,
The passion that comes from being an orphan.
Right. Yeah, there are going through the tough stuff in life. It opens the heart to love and compassion in a way that you don't have without it.
Can I dissect a log in my own eye?
Okay, sure.
I am basically a happy person, but there are times, on days that I'm not. And since our son-in-law died in January, and all the repercussion problems, and if I mention it to people, there's 4 people now who have said things that I can think of that deeply wound me, like if you have faith, write down your prayers and God will heal it. I forgot the other 2, and I get so upset when they say that. And I'm thinking, I don't think I do to other people that callousness of someone going through grief and acting like, oh, just write it down, God will take you. I think that's not healthy. And I say I forgive you because I know they don't know what they're doing to me. I don't say it out loud, but in my mind I say,
Yeah.
I forgive you because you don't know. But at the same time, maybe they just don't want to hear about it because sometimes I feel like they're going through enough stuff of their own. They don't want to hear mine. So I'm trying to figure out what's my log that I can't let people be callous to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're being callous. I think they're being uneducated, maybe. They don't
I
know.
don't know what to say, they want to
They
say
don't,
something.
they want to fix it. People want to fix it right away.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
that's the problem.
that's the thing that we're looking at with these steps is we're looking at the problem of human behavior to go through something and then to try to fix it, to try to stop it, to try to control it, to try to cope with it, so what gets us into these bad places is jumping the gun. And the thing is, with deep loss or with tragedy, nobody needs to do anything.
A lot of times,
I
the
mean-
best
I
thing you
mean-
can do for somebody that's going through grief, just sit with them. Don't say a word, just sit with them.
Be there.
Yeah, be there for them. If
Yeah.
they want to hold your hand, fine. If they don't, that's fine too.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we are wired to try to fix things, or to try to, you know what I mean?
Make it right.
So, they are.
Yeah, and I don't want them to fix me.
Yeah.
Where would I be if I let other people fix me? I would be a totally different.
And you don't know, are they trying to fix you or are they trying to protect themselves? Because it's like, okay, let's not talk about what happened with you? Okay, let's not get into that, you know. But I'll pray for you. Bye. So it's hard to go through the painful things. So it's like really, it's scary for the people around that's not direct.
If they don't embrace their own feelings, they don't want to embrace.
Yeah, and some people have not yet experienced a loss like that. Some people don't have the experience of that. It's amazing. I mean, people can go through life and not have somebody really close to them die. It happens. And then also, everybody's really wired differently in terms of the way that we react to things, because some people may find themselves after a deep loss just completely numb in a daze. It kind of feels like a dream state. Some people will go straight into the I can't stop crying. It's just that's where they're at. Some
in my eye that makes me not want to hear. Oh, just pray. One woman I accepted.
We're there at.
Not your eye.
Well, I don't know, one of my friends in North Carolina, my neighbor for 25 years, she was very religious, so when he was dying, I called and asked her if she'd pray for him. And then she wanted to tell me who to vote for in politics, and I said, my heart is broken, I don't want to talk politics. She said, don't you ever call me again unless you want to talk politics.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Well, that's the one we said, well, that's not really your friend then.
Well, I did take her out of my contact list.
So when my family had that tragedy back in 2007, there was a coworker that literally walked the other way when he saw me coming. Literally.
And what is that? A cookbook?
A coworker. He would
Coworker.
walk away if he saw me coming. He would literally distance himself from me. And eventually we were able to talk about it. He said, I was afraid what happened to you was going to rub off on me.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And it was just fear. But I mean, he literally would get up and walk away, and it was like, can't even say, "Oh, no,
afraid
no,"
to
turn
be
and walk away.
afraid to be sad. We're afraid to be sad.
Yeah.
We can be terrified to be sad. And part of it might be because, if we're honest, the weight of the sadness that's buried deep inside, if we allow ourselves to open that up, we don't know. We don't know. It'll just, and that's why a lot of people are afraid to start crying. I remember experiencing it, hearing it from other people. If I start crying, I don't think I'll be able to stop. I don't think I will. I think I'll just, I'm going to cry so much that I'm going to die. It's going to take me. So I don't know, maybe it's a good question that you have, like what is the log? I mean, maybe.
I know her problem. Her husband died 3 years ago, and in for 85 years, he told her every single move she should make. So she's afraid of being alive right now. She'll hear about. But that's not the log story. That's her story, and I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Why was I hurt by her story?
It's something that does bring healing is when we know that somebody understands us, or we know that somebody kind of feels what we're feeling, and it's hard to find people like that you can talk to and kind of share back and forth. And when you find somebody that gets it, I think it makes us feel not alone, and it helps us to accept those things that we've gone through. And so if somebody comes to us like that, it's offensive it's offensive because they're just rubbing it in your face that they don't get it. And somehow to claim that they can fix things so easily when you know this cannot be fixed. It's a disregard for the life of your loved one and for everything that they meant to you. You know, if somebody is a part of your life for all this time and you share all this stuff and you have all this love built up over the years, for someone to say something like, well, just take a magic eraser and it'll go away. It's like, what? It's like you're not honoring the life of that person and how much that they meant to you. And there's this, it's a debasement of what's really happening. And just,
I think sometimes it's just not that, this is just me, I just think it's not that complicated. I think sometimes people don't know what to say and they say something that hurts our feelings, but they don't mean it that way. They're
Yeah.
trying to be, they just don't know what else to say, you know, but
Yeah.
they're trying to let you know. I don't know, that's just me.
The word you said that is what I feel at that moment is that I feel so lonely. When
Yeah.
someone does that.
right.
When my friend we went to Israel together. She was very religious because
Yeah.
her husband dealt with all the hard things. So she
Well,
had-
it's disappointing that somebody that's your friend I thought you understood me. I thought you would understand this feeling of all people because you know me so well. So it's almost like another disappointment on top of the pain. Now it's like, I mean, I think, but I agree with you, Patty. I don't think people intend to cause harm at all. I think it's the opposite. People's intentions is they want to do anything they can to help.
What can I do
But-
to fix
They
you?
just don't know what.
But the reality is with loss, there's nothing any of us can do for each other that's going to really make it any better. There is support, you know. There's listening support. There is just kind of being available. There's willingness to engage in a talk when somebody's ready for it, you know. But yeah, it's awkward. It's especially right after someone passes away. It's just an awkward situation, and we're so used to being able to just freely talk and just say whatever comes to mind, and we find ourselves in a situation where it's like, I can't talk. And then some people, I mean, most of us, if we're used to talking, we feel so awkward not to talk.
And especially, I guess, if it's somebody that's that close, that's really a good friend, you don't even realize, but maybe we have expectations on, how did you say that to me? Like, you know, we've done this, we've
Yeah.
done that, we've been close.
Yeah.
How could you just, you know, so that would be different than just somebody trying to offer condolences that, you
It
know.
extends further than that. I'm one of those who I refused to cry when Russell died. And because of that, my friends thought I was very cold.
They said what?
So it
They
goes
thought she was cold.
Oh.
Because she refused to, yeah, right. And everybody is wired differently in terms of our emotional expression, you know. And what we see on the outside and what a person feels on the inside, they don't always match up. You know, you can have a person that looks like everything is absolutely okay, but on the inside, there is a deep, you know, profound sadness somebody's experiencing.
So much of the grief we're talking about, this is what Carol's going through right now with this move to Mississippi. It's just, it's almost unbearable. Well, it really is. It's unbearable for her right now. She can't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Won't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And sees no way out.
Is it that rational, the words don't help hurt feelings, sad feelings? Rationality doesn't address feelings. I noticed that when I was flying, My husband's a pilot, and when we were young, we go flying. Once I had a baby, I was scared to death of flying. And everybody gave me thousands of reasons why it was safe to fly, and none of it made any difference. And I think the reasons don't match a feeling. They can't trump the other.
Right.
Feelings aren't facts, but
And what?
feelings aren't facts. They're not right and they're not wrong, but we just have to feel, and that's what I was told and have learned, that the only way to get through them is to go through them. You can't sweep them under the rug, or you can ignore them for a while, but at some point, I think if we don't feel them and deal with them, we don't ever get past that, whatever, however that makes us act. I mean, that maybe is simple, but it works for me.
Yeah, and they are mysterious.
Oh.
They are very mysterious. We still, it's hard to research because they're invisible. And we don't have physical data to collect. So we're if we have anything, we have somebody's interpretation of what they're feeling. And a feeling is in the stuff that I've read most recently, which was kind of a game changer. Of an emotion is a physical sensation and a combination of thoughts that kind of are working their way together to form something. So it's like you're feeling something physically in your body, and you're attaching these thoughts to that physical sensation, and then we call it something. Oh, that's anger. Oh, that's sadness. But it's like the words, these little words that we're giving they don't. It's like,
Call it anger, it just doesn't cut it.
it's like, well, I think there's some culture where it rains all the time, and I don't know if it's like India or something, and they have or places where it snows. Like the people that live in the North Pole have like 50 words for snow, and we have like one, or three. The people that live in a place where it rains all the time might have 50 words for rain, and we have like, well, it's raining cats and dogs, and that's about it. But same with the emotions. I mean, it's like there's 50 types of sad, there's 50 types of angry, and it's like it's showing up in a different place in the body, and it's attached to different thoughts, and it's a mysterious thing. We can have some understanding and address our emotions in somewhat of a healthy way, but we need help, and we need feedback from one another, and we need God's help, because I don't know, there's strange things that we go through, and they're so powerful, and they don't go away.
So I don't need to keep looking for the log in my eye, except hopefully I'll be smarter at helping somebody else in grief.
The log in our eye works as it can be a helpful thing. Sometimes it may not totally apply. It may not, if you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off because they're late to work or whatever, and they almost kill you, you're going to get angry. But to make a big deal about that is just like, I don't know that the log thing is going to work there. It's just like a jerk cut you off, or somebody didn't know what they're. I mean, you something dangerous just happened to you. It's upsetting.
Really, the log in your eye isn't something for you to see. It's something that someone else will see in your eye. You can see the log in someone else's eye, but you can't necessarily see it in your own eye. It's not for you to go,
Well,
wow, here's my problem.
Maybe that's a part of why we look at our shortcomings and share it with other people. We can be, there's something here, feels like it's shaped like round, kind of brownish looking. It feels like it's taking up my whole eye. Can you tell me what it is?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we're still in 8.
Yes, we are.
So we are.
I think we just kind of started 8. So.
We're willing to make amends. this that we talked about is we're kind of prepping ourselves.
Are we already to the end?
Yeah.
We'll come back to 8. Not next week. We actually will not have Bible study next week. I will be out of town. But then we will come back the week after that. So the next time we'll meet will be the 25th.
Yeah.
The 25th. So no Bible study on the 18th next week. We'll pick right back up where we left off, though.
Okay.
Send us out in the power of your Spirit.